Here we are at our Chapter 5, Target 1E from our Chapter 5 study guide. Now, we're asked to simplify the following expression using properties with exponents. Believe it or not, with E, there are actually a number of different ways that we can go ahead and proceed with it. What I think I'll do is actually show 3 different ways, and then you can go ahead and choose whichever one you feel is going to work best for you. So for the first one, we'll say this is method 1. The first method is pretty much just starting off by placing those negative exponents where they appropriately belong. So for example, we see that this b raised to the negative third power does have that negative exponent, so we are going to throw him on the bottom. And so when we do that, we end up then with just c on top over a squared. B now has that positive exponent of 3. And this is still raised to the negative fourth power. For that c variable, it does have an exponent. It is, in fact, 1. It's not written. It's assumed it's 1. And now what we can go ahead and do is use our power to a power property. And so we're going to distribute this negative 4 into all the items. And with that power raised to the power, we will be multiplying those exponents. So when we do that, we end up with c on top raised to the 1 times negative 4 gives us negative 4. On the bottom, we have a squared times negative 4, so we'd end up with a to the negative 8. B, again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents, so 3 times negative 4 gives us negative 12. Now that we have our negative exponents, what we can go ahead and do is place those appropriately, where they appropriately belong. And so when we do that, we end up with a on top to the 8th, b on top to the positive 12th, and taking that c on top that has a negative exponent and throwing him on the bottom, now making him a positive exponent. So this would actually be our simplified version for E. But again, that is one route that you can take. Let's go ahead and look at maybe method 2. For our second method, what we can go ahead and do is multiply right away. So again, powers to powers, we're just going to go ahead and multiply them and end up then with b raised to the negative 3 times negative 4, because again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents. So negative 3 times negative 4 gives us positive 12. For c, we have c raised to the first, power to a power, being raised to that negative fourth power, so we'd end up multiplying those exponents, giving us c to the negative 4th. And on the bottom, we have a squared being raised to the negative 4th power. Again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents, giving us negative 8. After which, then we go ahead and place those appropriate variables where they belong. We end up then with b is still on top, because it still has that positive exponent. We're bringing a to the top because it does have that negative exponent. And we're bringing c down to the bottom because it has that negative exponent. We end up then with a again on top, raised to the positive 8, over c, now to that positive 4. Notice we end up with the exact same answer. Again, that's the second method. Really what's going on there is we're kind of just bypassing throwing that b on the bottom right away. So that's pretty much just what we're skipping. Notice though we also place the variables where they appropriately belong. The third method, this is number 3, is we notice that we have this fraction and it's being raised all to that negative 4th power. Now because we don't have a plus or minus in between, because we only have multiplication and division, what we can go ahead and do is flip our fraction and then raise that, instead of the negative 4th power, raise that to the positive 4th power. So what that looks like is we have a squared on top divided by b to the negative 3rd, c to the 1st. And this is all raised to the negative 4th, or I'm sorry, now to positive 4th power. So again, we just flip the top and bottom and change the exponent to a positive. Next, what we can go ahead and do is distribute that power. Again, powers to powers, we are multiplying those. There is a fourth way you could actually bring this b up immediately. We'll save him for the next step, though. So when we do that, we have a squared to the fourth power. Again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents, giving us then a to the eighth. On the bottom, we have b raised to the negative third, raised then to the positive 4. Again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents. For c, again, power to a power, multiplying those exponents 1 times 4, giving us 4. Just now throwing that b where he appropriately belongs, because it does have that negative exponent, we would end up with a to the 8th, b to the 12th, over c to the 4th. Notice 3 different ways, just different routes to which we actually took them. I will say I think that the third way is a nice little quick process. If you are raising to that negative exponent, you can just kind of flip-flop the fraction and then change that exponent to a positive. So then you're dealing with less negatives throughout the problem. But again, though, that is Chapter 5, Target 1E from our Chapter 5 study guide.